And I have Ruzvelt Stefanowski, the godfather of Harpo's Concert Theater, on the line right now. Ruzvelt, how are you doing?
Good, my friend. How are you, George?
Oh, man, if I was any better, I'd have to be twins. So you've been really, really busy with Harpo's lately. From everything that I've been reading and seeing, you've been packing the venue, and I first want to say congratulations on bringing that historical venue back to life. And I'm happy it didn't end up a parking lot.
Yes, George. Thank you. This year, I'm really happy. We had 4 sold-out shows. The first one was, we had Mudfest, Puddle of Mud with, Saliva and a bunch of other bands. Second one was Hatebreed. And then we had Static X with Devil Driver, all sold out.
Wow.
Really happy and excited. And we have another one coming up, almost sold out. It's still on Samo in the Illegals, which right now they're on the Slayer tour. And I got them to play at Harpo's. They're doing a whole entire Pantera set.
Yeah,
it's only Michigan appearance.
It's the vulgar display of power stuff, I think, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes.
And you also had, and when is that? That's isn't that November 13th, right?
November 13th. Yes, it's a month away.
And you had Camelot on September 19th as well.
Yes, Camelot. Excuse me. It was with Battle Beast and Sonata Arctica. That was last month.
That
was a good show. Excellent. Lighting. It was a great performance.
I'm looking back at the calendar. You had some great shows this past summer too, and I am actually looking really, really forward to the November 13th with Phyllis Samo and the Illegals. Here's something I was curious about. What's up with this Lotus Land? They're a Rush tribute. Are they? Or where did you hear about these guys?
Okay, that show that's coming up. I believe it's November the 2nd.
Yeah.
It's an American Rush tribute band. Also, we have a local band opening up the Mugs. Actually, George, that's not my show. It's a different promoter, Four Front Productions.
Right.
He's doing that show. They're renting the venue. And I just talked to Ken, and that's, the sales are pretty good on that show. And, of course, I have to mention your big show is coming up, which is next on the calendar at Harpo's heavy metal horror show, Halloween.
Yeah, October 20th.
Looking forward to that, the 36th anniversary for you guys.
Yeah, that's
back to Harpo's.
Yeah, oh my, it's last year was a blast, and I have a feeling we're gonna top last year. So I mean that's the plan anyway. 36 years is a long time, and I'm
long time, man. We've been friends for that long. I remember the first time you guys played Blondies. It's like yesterday, George, and we've been friends ever since.
Oh, I know. We have, I think we need to do a couple of Blondie stories because
right.
there was so many. I most of my fondest memories were in Blondies. I remember the bathroom in Blondies, and it was a black and white checkered floor. And it would not matter. Whenever I walked in there and looked down at the floor, I started getting vertigo because the checkers made me hallucinate.
Okay.
They did, and I got to tell you, I am surprised with back then. That was before the Great White accident with the fire. I'm surprised we did not burn down Blondies.
Right, the ceiling was not that high. Yeah, I know you guys.
I know.
Incidents.
Yeah, well, I remember seeing black soot on the ceiling from our flamethrowers,
right.
And man, you were just as crazy as we were for letting us do that.
I was crazy. I would let anybody play it, including G.G. Allen, throw shit all over the place.
Literally.
He did everything.
You know what? And there's a lot of bands that came through that you gave a break to, and Slayer being one of them.
Yeah, I was the first one to bring Slayer in Detroit. That was 1984. We did 2 shows, but we did Slayer the first time, Megadeth the first time there. Guar, bunch of other bands which are pretty big right now.
Well, King Diamond as well, I recall.
Yeah, King Diamond actually was really excited. One particular show, then it was Megadeth. Actually, Megadeth was opening up for King Diamond on a different show.
Yeah, you've also had...
Megadeth could not perform that particular show because it was overcrowded. The cops came, they said, either you close the show or we close this place for you. So I had no choice. I went up to the stage and said, talked to Mustaine. I said, Dave, you guys can't play that. That show is over. He said, well, what's going on? I'll talk to you later, but we can't do it no more. I mean, that's it. Show is over. So that did not happen. King Diamond did play, but not Megadeth.
Isn't that where you hooked up Chuck Beeler?
I'm not sure. Maybe. Yeah. What happened was Agar was Megadeth's drummer at that time, and Dave was not happy about it, and he asked me, Ruzvelt, do you know any local techs or drummers? I says, yes, I do. So the first guy I can think of was Chuck Burns from Seduce. I gave him a call. He wasn't available, so my second choice was Chuck Beeler. I said, get your ass down here, you might get a job with Megadeth. So that's how it happened, yes.
Well, that's awesome.
So after that, Chuck owed me quite a bit. I said, listen, man, you got to promote Blondies. So they played a lot of James Dio. They opened up at, I believe it was Joe Louis Arena. They were wearing Blondies t-shirts on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I was there that night, and I remember...
Oh, were you?
Well, actually, if you recall, the night before, the bass player from Dio was at your bar.
Oh,
Jimmy Bain.
Jimmy Bain, yeah.
Yeah, he was actually at Blondie's.
We had a little party there. I remember that. You brought him, I think.
Yeah.
Harpo's that night? Is that what it was? Or they played Harpo's?
Yeah, we played Harpo's, and they showed up just to come and hang out. And I remember we were backstage at Harpo's, and they wanted to go and party after the show, and and I had no place to take them. And you're like, hey, let's go to Blondie's, and you opened up Blondie's for us, and we hung out till early into the next morning. So yeah,
I remember that night, George.
Yeah, that was great.
Remember, but you can. I know something kind of funny things I said to Jimmy. You can tell the audience.
Well, what we did, apparently Jimmy Bain, from wherever he's from, what country he's from, one of their traditions are to, after you drink with somebody and you memorialize your friendship, you take the glasses that you drink from and you smash them. And so he grabbed one of these, the shot glasses, and we did a shot, and we both threw the shot glass. You had an artificial fireplace at Blondie's, and we threw them into the fireplace, and they shattered, and you were just screwing around. You walked up to him and goes, what are you doing to my fucking bar? You breaking my shot glasses? Dio will never play my fucking bar. And he started laughing. And he was trying to explain, well, we're playing at Joe Louis Arena tomorrow. We're not going to, what's that have to do with anything? And it was
I think I said to him after he said that, I said, I don't give a fuck if you're playing Joe Louis. This is Blondie's. You're not playing here. Something like that.
And he did about 2 years or 3 years later. He played there with World War III.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yes. He came back. A different band, yeah.
There was a lot of great bands that went through. I remember Z-Trobe came through, Snow White, Chastain, or was it CJSS? You had bands that nobody was having, and they were like all really heavy, really good bands, and so many of them went on to do arena tours and great things.
Every night we had touring bands, man, 6 or 7 shows per week.
Oh, I know.
That was something.
I mean, I've been in Blondie's. There was times I've been in there where you would walk in the door and you couldn't make it another foot because it was just so packed, you know. And you know, going.
You guys play on a regular basis. You guys played maybe once, 5, 6 times a year.
Oh yeah. It was our home. You know, it was you who actually, you know, gave us a break and would give us a gig. You know, we were pretty much. We were in the beginning. We were pretty much the Motor City stepchild that nobody really gave a shit about, but you kind of stuck with us for forever. I mean, even to now, 36 years. Actually, 37.
Always for the metal scene in Detroit, man. I want to help as much as I can.
Well, that's what
every band give them a chance, give them a little platform and space to perform instead of the basement or the garage.
Well, that's
and
what
Blondie's was the only club that was doing that type of style of music. A lot of clubs were doing all, you know, cover tunes, you know, dance music and stuff. I stuck to the original stuff.
Right.
And that's why Blondie's became like a legendary venue in the Midwest and all over.
And
actually, they voted Blondie's. I'm going to tell you a little story. See, when I was younger, I went to L.A. and I went to go to the Whiskey at Go-Go because, you know, a lot of the bands, the door and everybody performed there. And it wasn't open. I went with my girlfriend. I stood in front of the building and, like, my hair was riding. And my girlfriend says, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I said, "You don't know. This place is a legendary venue, and maybe one day I'll own a place like this." So I was at the Token a few years ago, and Bill Cozy was a sound guy, and he says, "Ruzvelt, congratulations." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I didn't get married." "Oh, no, man. They voted Blondie's in the entire world of VH1 as it was number 6 as a legendary venue in the entire world." I says, "Really?" He says, "Yeah, you beat the Whiskey. The Whiskey was number 7. So
that doesn't surprise me.
I said, "Wow." I says, when I was a kid, I went there. I wanted to have a venue just like the Whiskey, and I beat the Whiskey, you know, number 6 on the list. So to me, that means a lot, man. I mean, the thing was, I ran the club day to day, you know, and I didn't know who was going to call, who was going to play the next month or the next year or the next week. There's bands calling me they're on the road from the payphones, and it says, "Can we play there?" There's a band called No Effects, and we had nothing happening that day, and they called me and says, "Can we play there?" "Come on in and play." There's only me and Patty. You remember the barmaid? And
Patty,
Brown,
yeah.
On the sound. And only 2 people walked in. They paid $2 admission, I believe. They played the first song they played. They walked out. They didn't like the band, and they asked me, "So what do we do now?" I said, "Practice, man. Play." At the end of their set, and it's I get to ask Joe Brown. They didn't have money to get to the next tour. I paid Joe $50, and Joe gave it back to the band so they can make it to the next gig. So they remember Blondie's. I guess they're pretty huge now, and then they talk about it in their books or whatever interviews they do about the incident. They remember Blondie. So, you know, you never know. That place was, every day there was something happening in Blondie. I didn't know what's going to happen the next day, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I can attest to that because I remember before my band became Halloween, we were Bitch, and I came up to Blondie's, and the band pretty much basically lived in a house that was falling apart, and it didn't have heat, and we there'd be like 3 or 4 days without eating. Wow. And I walked up to Blondie's because it was about 1.5 miles from where we lived, and you let me in And you know what? You always used to let us in the early days to come and see shows, and I remember sitting there, and then at the end of the show, I was walking out, and you're like, "You walking home?" And you ask, "Where's my car?" I'm like, "I don't have a car." So you're like, "Oh, come on, I'll drive you home." It was your little red Fiero. And we were in the car, and you were doing something with the keys, and my stomach made a grumbling noise. You're like, "What the fuck was that?" I go, "That's just my stomach." And then you're like, "Did you eat?" And I was like, "No." And you ended up taking me to Burger King, and that was like the first time I ate in like 3 days, and that's something that will stick with me for the rest of my life. I mean, it at that point, it was not a musician and a club owner; it was friends.
Right.
That's
so. Friends. Yeah, that's when we became friends. Wow, that's a great story, George. That makes me feel good. Stuff like that, little things that matter in life. You know what I'm saying?
It does, and that's the stuff that really sticks with people. And that's the type of guy you've always been. I mean, at Blondie's too, out on 4th Street, when you opened up the second Blondie's,
right.
I remember you opened up the venue early and let us rehearse there. You opened it up. I think it was the day before. We came and we set up all the equipment and stuff, and I remember it was snowing really bad out, and you open up the venue at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I think you ordered pizza, or somebody ordered pizza, and it was like, I remember being on stage looking out, watching the snowfall, going, wow, and that's just how you were, and still are. So,
well, you have to be, man, and that's my personality, with every band, local bands, out-of-town bands, and I'm like with you guys. I'm part of you. I'm a club owner, but I know what you guys go through. We're like a family, and you guys know what I go through. So every show, we like to make it successful, and it's not easy. This business is not easy, as you know.
No, and the cool thing too is, I get to see you outside of the bar. We actually get to hang out, which is a good thing. It's not just a business.
We're a family now, George. We're a family.
So,
and like every day I wake up and I thank God that I'm still here on this earth, because I lost a lot of my friends. They're gone.
Oh yeah, I know. It seems like every month we hear somebody that was close to us that's gone. But you know what? We're still here. And speaking of gone, bringing Harpo's back is probably one of the best things that has happened to this whole music scene here in the Motor City. Speaking of, there is a party bus that's leaving from Port Huron, Michigan, coming to Harpo's on October 26th.
Yes.
That's the Casting Shadows.
Casting Shadows.
Yeah,
Casting Shadows, they're opening up for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, people that are, if they don't want to do the drive, I think there's still maybe a half a dozen seats still open. So, and it's $25 for a round trip on the party bus. They stop at a store. So, you can contact the guys from Casting Shadow on Facebook, and
Jeff Lynn, I believe Jeff Lynn is the guy that's
right. And I had him on the show last week, or 2 weeks ago, and then last week I had 86 Noodles on the show, and I got Head Rush coming up on the next show, so that's actually kind of cool.
That's the other opening band for
I think they're going to be on. Actually, you know what? They're on today's show, so I'll be. I'll be calling Mr. Harley himself here in a few minutes, and then.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward, and all three of those bands were great bands too. Very, very good bands.
We got a good lineup.
So now,
good guys.
Let's talk real quick about the November 13th, the Phil Anselmo show. That is definitely a have-to-go-to show. How much are tickets for that show?
tickets are only $25. And like I said, the show is almost sold out, and we have a month to go. So it'll probably be sold out in the next couple of weeks. So if you
can get fee-free tickets at herposlive.com, right? Meaning fee-free is there's no service charge. So it just
I pay for the fees so that they don't have to. They have another option. They can purchase tickets from Ticketweb, but they do charge fees.
Yeah, so it's just a straight $25 from the Herpos site.
Correct.
And that goes for any show that comes to Herpos. You can get them directly right from the Herpos site, which again is www.herposlive.com. And don't be afraid to get those tickets. And if you are going, definitely order your Philosamo tickets in advance because they're not going to last long. Also, on the 26th, you could get the tickets from either somebody in Headrush or Casting Shadows or 86 Noodles, or you can get them right from the harposlive.com or at the door. The cool thing about that, too, is you've been kind enough to donate. I've been doing 3 pairs of tickets since first week of September, once a week on my show. And I want to thank you for that. It's really cool. It helps our listeners out. Everybody's very familiar with Harpos. They hear the ads here on all of the shows and stuff. And I just want to thank you, on behalf of Sonic Asylum Radio for being kind enough to do that.
Well, same. I want to thank you, George, for promoting Harpos since I opened up. You've been helping a lot, so it works both ways. You're helping, and I'm helping. It works both ways.
So we, on the 26th, we have a costume contest as well, and I think we talked about maybe winners can win a Halloween shirt and a Harpo shirt. Maybe I think also we're going to have the scariest costumes. If they're scary enough, they'll come up on stage and be part of the Halloween show. So dress up for this event. It's be great.
Well, it's one of the biggest Halloween parties in Detroit. So, Halloween.
Right. That's what I'm saying. All right, my brother. Well, listen, I'm going to get back to putting some music, and we can definitely look forward to maybe do a follow-up. I'll call you in a few weeks, and we'll talk about how the show went. Is that okay?
Okay. Sounds good. Great talking to you, George. I'll see you soon, brother.
Okay. All right, my brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye. And there you have it. That was Ruzvelt Stepanowski, the proud owner of Harpo's Concert Theater. And we'll be back right after this.